Sometimes we need to go back to the basics. And very often I get approached by people on LinkedIn who try to sell me something and who also have a terrible LinkedIn profile. They have an unprofessional profile picture. There's nothing in their LinkedIn banner. And their headline says something like passionate about growth. Now, some of those things might be so basic to you that you feel like skipping this video. But even among successful people, I very often see mistakes like not linking your job experience to a company page, not adding enough interesting info to your employment history, and of not asking your past clients for recommendations so that the most recent recommendation is over 5 years old. And those are not trivial errors. They are the equivalent of showing up to a job interview in a stained shirt or smelling like cheese. For most people, it's challenging enough to turn strangers into clients, so there's no need to make it artificially hard on yourself by having a suboptimal profile. So if you haven't taken a critical look at your LinkedIn profile, or you haven't had any inbound clients recently, then it's worth checking out this 9-step checklist video and see if you're making any of these boneheaded errors in your LinkedIn profile. And final point, before we get started, it's all about your personal profile. Nobody really cares about company pages, so you can largely ignore it. The only reason to have a LinkedIn company page is so that you can link your current job experience to that company, so you don't have this ugly gray logo in your employment history. All right, let's get started. These are the 9 things to optimize on your LinkedIn profile. Let's look at profile optimization, shall we? First, we will cover some fundamentals of LinkedIn profile optimization. We will look at the settings that we have to activate so that the maximum number of people can find us and interact with us. We will look at all the areas to optimize, and then we'll talk about continual optimization. Okay, so what are the goals with this? We want to maximize the rate at which people accept our invitation to connect. And of course, we want to maximize inbound leads. When we have a well-designed, well-worded profile, then of course, we hope that this will lead to people inquiring about our services. So your LinkedIn profile is your business's landing page of sorts, right? And it's the personal face of your profile, but that does not mean that you should design your profile as if it were your CV. This is a mistake that I see many people make, especially when they come from an employment background. They just talk about themselves like they would on a CV. And when you are providing services, when you're a coach, consultant, or small B2B provider of any kind of B2B products and services, that's not a good idea. So you need to make the transition from talking about how smart, skilled, and accomplished you are to talking about what you do for your clients. And that, of course, can include how many people you've helped, which then in turn reflects well on you, but it should start from the place of this is what I do for my clients rather than this is how smart I am. And this is what I mean with a typical CV style profile. First, this person you can see on the top, they are mentioning their job title, AVP of Cyber Services. This is, of course, something we will not do. We will not mention our job title. We will be listing what we do for our clients. But then when you look at the About section, first of all, this person writes about themselves in the third person, and they write, blah, blah, is an assistant VP of Cyber Services markets with over 10 years of experience, security, and all these kind of the buzzwords, delivering across both commercial, private, and public sector environments. He has over 4 years of Splunk and Splunk experience and holds Splunk certification and so on. So this is the typical CV style profile that we want to avoid. And this is a great example of a client-centric profile, right? In his background image, he talks about get more leads, more signups, less churn. So he talks very much about what his clients will get with him. And then in his headline, he says, helping you transform eyers into buyers. Interesting. I haven't seen that properly before. Convert per users into paying users and get more recurring revenue, right? So he even adds a little bit of humor into it. And that's a great way to do that, because very often humor is very difficult to convey because it sometimes appears too clever. He actually manages to do this well, and he definitely painted a smile on my face when I read this. So he's a very good example of a client-centric profile. Now, you probably have heard of creator mode in LinkedIn. This is something that has been activated in mid-2021. Some people are asking, and this is a hot topic of debate on LinkedIn, whether you should enable creator mode, yes or no. Quickly, what is creator mode? It's simply a different way to showcase yourself on LinkedIn. It's just a different way to skin the cat. Here it features your hashtags that you are using. It also displays the follower count more prominently. The featured section is more prominent, is higher up on the profile, and the about section is lower down. Those are the main differences. And one of the issues with creator mode, especially when you are trying to grow your network, is that adding somebody who is in creator mode as a connection is a 5-click process versus 3 clicks in standard mode. So you have to click more, you have to click connect again, then add a note, and then enter a message and click send. Right? So it's simply a little bit more labor intensive, which means that on the margins, a few people who otherwise would have connected with you will not do it now. And as you are growing your network, as you want to have a wider reach, it is useful to maximize the likelihood that people will actually connect with you so that you can also message them. And you don't want to necessarily accumulate followers at your early stages. You want to accumulate connections. So quickly, as a comparison, this is the standard mode. You can see that the about section is more prominent. There's not as much below the person's name and title. For example, the number of followers is not there. There's no hashtags. And the featured section is also not visible. So it's just a little comparison. And then there is no difference. I have not heard anybody report that that is a difference in terms of how the algorithm treats your content. So you cannot boost your visibility just by going into creator mode. That won't happen. You still have to provide good content to do that. However, on the plus side, creator mode does make you look a bit more like a sophisticated LinkedIn user because it's not the default, right? You have to opt into it, which means that you know LinkedIn as a platform a little bit better. You don't just use the factory settings, so to speak. So that's why anytime you want to portray a certain level of marketing prowess, then it would be better for you to use creator mode because kind of subconsciously, because far more of the really sophisticated LinkedIn users are using creator mode. And there's a big preponderance among non-sophisticated LinkedIn users to not use it. You want to appear like part of the in-group. And that's why I would then suggest to use creator mode if marketing skills are an important aspect of your value proposition. So then when we look at creator mode, the verdict, I believe there's no major upside or downside of opting into creator mode. Just as a rule of thumb, I would say tilt towards creator mode. If marketing skills are part of your value proposition, you will be perceived as a more sophisticated LinkedIn user. And outside of that use case, it really doesn't matter. Now let's look at the profile settings. This is just homework that we need to do. In the beginning, you just click on your face on the top right and then settings and privacy. You can choose that. There's so many different settings you can do. I just want to focus on 2 specific areas that are important. The first one is the people also viewed part. Definitely change this to no. Why? Because you don't want to be showcasing your competitors on your page. So this is when people come to your profile. Then on the right-hand side, sometimes you can see people also viewed, which is a code word for these are this person's competitors. If you disable that, then there is a different showcase and they showcase something different. Off the top of my head, I don't know what it is, but at least it does not showcase your competitors. So disable this feature of people also viewed. And then the main part that you should go through is this part called visibility, where there are several options that you can choose to change. The main thing here is that you change to maximum visibility. There are people whose profile picture is not visible until you have connected with them. I think that's a very bad idea. Definitely change this to your profile picture being always visible and so on. So this is just go through it and make it as visible and as accessible as you possibly can. There is only one thing that I recommend. It's not a strong recommendation, but I have it personally set to no, is this share profile updates with your network. I would say don't do that because you want to experiment, you want to change your headline on occasion. And every single time that you change something, this would become a post of yours and you would notify your network. I don't think that's a very good idea if you try to be scientific about your profile and experiment with it. Okay, now let's look at the main part, areas to optimize. These will be the areas we will be looking at: name, profile image, background image, headline, about section, featured section, company description, work history, and recommendations. Let's get right into it. The name, very clear, very straightforward, very obvious. Simply put your name there. Sometimes I just wanted to mention, sometimes people have this, that they also mention what they do, like John Smith, leadership coach, or here ST, sales funnel expert, right? This is part of their name. You can do it. I'm sure you have seen this as well. I just don't like it. It seems just too desperate. To me, it seems like I automatically associate with it that somebody is just trying so hard. I find it much more dignified when you just put your name, and your name stands for what it is, rather than you mixing it up with something with your job title or with your profession. I just don't think that's particularly professional. So I would recommend against that. Feel free to do it differently. Then there's a topic of adding pronouns, because since we're talking about the name, this is an option to add on top of your name. I mean, this question is relevant on 3 levels, whether you should add pronouns. First of all, as a matter of principle, simply ask yourself, are you comfortable with people on LinkedIn assuming your sex or gender or whatever you want to call it? If yes, then no need to add pronouns. That's the main reason for adding pronouns is when you do not want people to assume your sex. So just go for that. Then there's also a political dimension to it, because by adding your pronouns, you're also signaling your political affiliation. And finally, on a pragmatic side, depending on your target audience, you may need them. If you were to, for example, be selling into corporate HR, I think it could be a liability if you did not have pronouns. So just decide whatever is right for you and go with that. Now let's look at the profile picture. The rules for the profile picture is, I mean, it can all be summarized in one simple rule: have a professionally shot profile picture. That's it, right? And even if you don't have somebody professional, just take a half an hour, ask your partner to do a couple of dozen shots of you with good lighting, with a nice background where you are well dressed and so on. If you do that, you're gonna be fine. I just want you to avoid you using a profile picture that is somehow of a snapshot or poorly lit and so on. So, but quickly, what are the profile picture rules? The face should be clearly visible, good lighting, the more natural, the better. So don't do any kind of like fancy poses and stuff like that. I recommend no selfies. The camera angle should be horizontal or slightly from above, so that you don't shoot too much from the bottom. Everybody can appear that they have 3 chins if you photograph them from low enough an angle. So avoid that. Of course, be well dressed, nice, not too busy background, ideally slightly out of focus, if at all. I actually would recommend that you do a uniform colored background that you then have somebody on Fiverr to change for you, so that it's a really nice and very bright yellow, for example, background, so that you stand out in people's inboxes. And of course, smile. And then ideally add some kind of subtle, unique quirk, maybe circle, background color, company logo, etc. Please don't use any leisure snapshots. And of course, nothing suggestive in terms of like revealing clothing and so on. It just does not look professional. You don't want the attention for the wrong reasons. And here on the right-hand side, you see 2 options of how you can add color. I'm using the LinkedIn Halo. This is my client, Stefan, who is using the yellow background color. Stands out quite nicely on the blue default color that is on LinkedIn. And the great thing is it really stands out in the inbox, right? And you want to, like, there's people have so many messages from so many people. You want to do as much as you can to stand out from all the others. Okay, just a couple more examples. You can imagine why the ones on the left are good, why the ones on the right are bad. So I'm not going to get into much more detail around this. It's pretty straightforward. So now let us talk about how to add a halo around your picture. It's this circle around it, or how to add or change the background color of your image. But before we do that, we want to remove the background from our existing picture. So we can either do that in Canva, and let's do that now. We just select LinkedIn post. It doesn't really matter which of these design templates you use. Should just be a small compact one. And then we go into uploads. We're going to go into upload files. Let's take this picture. This picture is actually better. Let's take it, and then we're going to use it here. We're going to now go edit photo, background remover, and it has removed the background. We're going to go share and download and transparent background, download. And then we're going to go into PowerPoint, insert pictures, this device. And we're going to select this one. I pre-downloaded it already, so it's already on my computer. Okay, here we have it. Let's make it slightly smaller. And now what we want to add some background. So let's just take this, for example, hold down the Shift key to make it uniformly a circle, go shape fill. And let's just keep yellow. You can just select any other color. You go here, more fill colors. You can select your company color, and then shape outline. Let's go and select red. You can add more weight. If you go here, you can go more lines. You can then make the weight even bigger, and so on. That kind of variation you can have here. And then we're going to send it to back so that I'm over it. And yeah, you can see that my bottom part is a little bit too straight to cut off. That's not good. Let's just slightly reduce the circle size so that I fit snugly into it. I should actually be a little bit bigger here. My face should look bigger. I said about half of the circle's radius. About the circle's radius. This is pretty okay. So we need to cut me off. We need to do cropping here. We go picture format. We go crop to shape. And now we have cropped me to shape, but it's still a little bit too far out. So we're going to go a little bit more. Nope, that was a bit too much. We're just going to keep it here. And we're going to reduce the size here as well. Wait, that's too much. Let's go here. I think I reduced it too much on this side. Here we go. It's a little bit of sometimes a tiny bit fiddly. And then here, whoops, and then here, rock and roll. Oh no, I still need to crop it a bit. Yeah, as I said, you just need to crop it so that it fits this frame nicely. And voila, that looks pretty good to me. Perfect, now we got it, okay? So it's a little bit of a fiddly play around job. So now you go and save as picture, all of this, and you just go picture to save, and you're done. This is now on your computer. By the way, if you don't want to use Canva and you don't have the premium version, which is okay, you can simply go to remove BG as a background remover. You just go upload image and whoops. Just go original. You got to upload image. I already uploaded it before. I recorded this once before, but I made a mistake. So we just remove background. See, it's already done. We go up, download, and we're done. Okay, let's talk about the background image. This is, of course, the default on LinkedIn. You should never be using this. There should always be something that furthers your brand. And here's a couple of options that we can look at. I personally believe that the best background images convey social proof with your profile picture and the background image combination. You want to be simply communicating on an emotional level, on a gut level, so that people feel, yeah, this is somebody worth listening to. And a background image where you are speaking to a crowd does the best job of that. So if you have that, and I very much encourage you to use that. Here's a couple more examples. These are people that I know. This person speaking on a stage, obviously that helps a lot. This person being interviewed on TV, that also, of course, helps with social proof. Even if you don't have something like this, then just a great landscape image or something that messages something about you as a person and what matters to you is a great idea. This is a skyline of London, but not a very common one. I think it would be a little bit cliche, of course, to put as a standard, the London Eye or Houses of Parliament and so on. This is a different building on the River Thames, and it's quite nice that this picture is very impressive and nice, but is not the usual stuff. And then below, the lady works in sports, so having this football field there is excellent. I think that's a great and very impressive photo as well. Just don't use any typical stock imagery that's just incredibly impersonal and people actively dislike that. So definitely don't do that. And then there's, of course, the option always you could have something like where you are communicating the value of your service. It is okay. I used to be a little bit against that. Now I'm a bit more favorable to it. Just try to not make it too wordy. That was the case. This is one of my earlier, the bottom one is one of my earlier versions of a background image. I'm now quite skeptical of this. I think it's way too wordy. I would not do that.
There are, in the resources section below this video, there's a compilation of great profile picture and background images combinations. So I encourage you to look through that. Many different ideas that will help you to find something that can work for you. And it can be as simple as this, where I really like the synchronicity of the guy's background color in terms of his halo. It's very orange, and then there's the orange of the beak of the bird. I think that's a great combination. I every time I look at it, I have to smile. So really well done. Okay, so much for the background image. Now let's look at our LinkedIn headline. This is from that profile I showed you before. So this is an example of a bad headline. Job titles are definitely not recommended, or anything that says something like AI expert or thought leader or serial entrepreneur or anything that you're passionate about, right? These are all bad ideas for headline because, of course, they speak about you rather than what you can do for your clients. And this is what we should be focusing on. Now, of course, I already hinted at that. Your offer statement and your positioning summary, that one sentence that we wrote at the end of the positioning exercise, that will be the basis of your LinkedIn headline. A couple of examples here. I help stressed CEOs get a grip on their schedule through smart outsourcing of personal admin and so on. This kind of I help statements, they are just the bread and butter of this. So this is a good idea to do that.
However, do show the trigger words as early as possible in the headline, because this is one of the comments I recently placed. And here you can see that what people see from me is the picture, the name, and then split your funnel into one, a high intent conversion machine, and so on. And this is the kind of stuff I want them to see, because we will simply take what we have identified as our offer and make sure that it is optimally designed and optimally worded so that we convey the key message in those first 70 characters that we have here. Okay, so for example, my offer is I help small B2B companies and solopreneurs build client acquisition systems by splitting their funnel into one, a high intent conversion machine, and two, a nurturing content environment. Now, the problem with that is that it starts with I help small B2B companies and solopreneurs, which is something that is very much common, very much used, very frequently used. And I want to stand out from the crowd. And so what I do is I'm going to swap it around. I'm going to put the better trigger words up front. Splitting your funnel into number one, number two, that is a much more interesting concept. And I will therefore put it into the headline first, rather than the small B2B companies and solopreneurs.
This is the evolution of my own headline. Just to give you an idea, this is not a one and done kind of exercise. You will go through many iterations of this. So don't worry, don't overthink it right now. It will probably change anyway in the first couple of months. My very first headline on LinkedIn when I started being serious about it was I help B2B companies with long sales cycles stand out, build trust, and get leads on the phone. And mind you, I was doing pretty much exactly what I do now, right? So it was just a different way to package the same service. This then led to I help B2B leaders grow their business on LinkedIn by building daily habits using the Content 360 method. And then I teach you to find prospects on LinkedIn, talk to them naturally, get them on the phone, sell them your service. And now this has turned into the split your funnel statement. Always think, just look at a specific person, somebody who you would like to work with, just look at them and then ask yourself, would this person feel like I'm addressing her with my headline? Like you can note that, for example, with my headline, I am already aiming at people, generally, I'm aiming at people who are already relatively savvy. Like I'm not aiming at complete beginners in business. I assume that they, for example, that they know what a funnel is and what conversion means. So that is a clear signaling from me. I just don't want to be working with people who have to explain these kind of extremely basic concepts. And that's why, of course, I don't know anything about Zoe, but when I look at her profile, I can imagine that she knows what I'm about. And so therefore, it's always good to just look at somebody and then think, would they get it, what I do? And please, last point about your headline, never ever add your phone number or email address in your headline. It's just way too desperate. It signals to people that your privacy is not valuable to you. And especially with a phone number, especially with a mobile number. So just don't do that. You appear far too available and as if your time is not precious to you. Okay, let's talk about your about section. This is arguably the most important part and the one that will take you the most time, because It's quite a bit of writing. It is 2,600 characters that you can spend, and there's a lot of info that you can package into that. So this is going to probably take you a little bit of time. Your about section needs to accomplish 3 things. It's number 1, make it very clear what you do. If your headline has not already accomplished that, it simply gives more details to what your headline is communicating. Then, of course, it needs to sell yourself, and it needs to build an emotional connection, because the truth is that because very likely you are in a space where you have plenty of competitors. And so if you can set yourself apart with good writing, then people will gravitate towards you. And if you share a story, for example, about why you do what you do, it's going to very much endear you to your potential clients, and they will start to gravitate towards you. So if you can tell a good story, you're going to build an emotional connection. Quickly, how to, on the about section, I recommend that you start with a personal story. People want some form of emotional connection with you, and start this story in a way that will get people to continue reading. And this is a form of good clickbait. And then transition into what you do for your clients. Make it easy to read, bullet points, scannable, I like to say. So bring in some color, but don't overload on emojis. Also, don't leave any key question in the prospect's mind unanswered, and try to avoid having dense blocks of text, maximum 2 sentences per paragraph, ideally only 1. If you have any, do include references and customer testimonials. I think this is always a missed opportunity when people do not include a couple of words of what people said about them. It can be just 1 sentence, don't overload it, but it's really key that you add those customer testimonials in there, because very often people will just look at a profile, quickly scan it, and then just look at the about section. And their customer testimonials really help if you have them there. This is just for reference, is what I said. I'm following my own rules. So this is my about section. You can see I start with a story of how I was fired for the first time in my life, what a humiliating experience it was, but it was a blessing in disguise. And then I circle back to, well, I was fired because I wanted to do what I do now for my clients. So this is quite a nice story. And of course, it's true. So that helps a lot when establishing credibility. And I've had several people reach out to me saying that they really enjoyed my story, especially when they had experienced something similar. And then what is really key are these what I do and who I serve, the why it works, the results, and so on. All of that really helps people to just scan what I do, just to scan my about section. And that is so much easier to do it when you have this kind of clear delineation from the sections one to another. Okay, so this is my about section, but I do recommend that you simply, if you like my about section, just copy it. Just copy it as it is on LinkedIn, put it into a Google Doc, and then change the wording to your own business. You can even keep using the other emojis. Nobody will see that you copied it from me, or they will not know if I copied it from you, you copied it from me. Nobody that does these kind of comparisons, just go for it, copy it, use the same emojis, and change the wording to your business. Really helps. A couple of resources here. In the section below this video, you will find links to a couple of lists that I created. These are some great openers of the about section. So if you cannot think of a good story that you could tell, there's a couple of alternative ideas for how you can start the about section so that people click on see more. I would generally recommend that you don't start talking about the business and what you do on top of the about section, but there should be something that really gets people to click on see more. And then the other resource is great about sections. Just generally, this is already the one that I showed you. Adam Kirsch does a great job of this. And that's it about the about section.
Ready. Point 6, featured section. What can we put up there? This is one of the best places to advertise your business besides your background image. But the better thing about the featured section is that there's a certain level of interactivity to it. You can click on it, you can expand it, you can do things with it. And you, as the creator of the featured section, can also play a couple of cool tricks with it that we will go through now. So I generally recommend by default that you, when you click on this plus, that you only use add a link, and that link will be a link to your landing page where you tell people about your business, you share a video, you show a calendar link, and then you display your client testimonials. That is the preferred usage because you're here to make money, and your LinkedIn profile is a funnel. It is the primary tool where people will discover you, because people will, of course, discover you much more on LinkedIn than via your website, unless you are running ads. And so on LinkedIn, this is the best place to actually guide people towards the action that you want them to take. And so that's why add a link is the best. There's also a use case for adding media in an article, and we're going to go through that now. I generally, before we go through these three, adding a post, you can, of course, do that too, but I'm not a big fan of that. This is generally only useful for people who are selling content creation services, where they want to showcase how good their content is being received by their audience. Even then, I would say it's much better if you showcase a client testimonial than your own content, because people just don't necessarily trust, if you are creating great content for yourself, that you will be able to do it the same thing for them. So adding a post, I see really limited value, and it is truly the solution of last resort. And I don't even think that is even that, because I think even before you add posts, it's much better to put a call to action, because the occasional person will find their way to your website that way. Adding a newsletter, I would definitely not recommend to do that. Newsletters are not popular on LinkedIn. And if I recall correctly, they've recently even stopped supporting them. LinkedIn will not be featuring them anymore or something like that. It's just not a popular tool, and I would not recommend you use them in the featured section. That leaves us with add an article, add a link, add media. Add an article, I can see a justification for it. If you have a complex value proposition and you want people to read about it first, you want to educate them, you can also add a video into an article. So that's an option. However, I don't think that this is superior to simply linking to your landing page where you explain your value proposition. Now, you could argue, well, if it's an article, you will get a few more click-throughs because people are still staying inside LinkedIn. And generally, when you stay inside the platform, you will get a higher click-through rate. Now, that is true, but the problem is you will then lose even more people, because not everybody will scroll down to the very bottom and then click through to your landing page, where then you can serve them a Calendly link. Okay, because it's just too many actions to take. And so I think that if you were to use an article for the explanation of a complex value proposition, you might as well just do the next thing, which is add a link. And that is if you want people to go to your landing page and take an action. This is what add a link is good for. And then add media, we will cover this in the next few sections. I just wanted to show you here, when you do add a link, how do you manage it that you get this pretty image or any image? It is part of your website, and I'll show you where that is, at least in my website page builder. It's when I go to this landing page and then I go into settings and SEO parameters. Here I can then upload the page OG image, right? So I've uploaded the image here. This is what you need to do. Your website builder will be different, but it is effectively the image that is associated with your website, with your landing page, and you can set that for every individual page. So whichever tool you use, I'm sure you can find in the bowels of that tool, you can find this setting. Usually it's in some SEO parameter place. Okay, now add media, that is an option. You can, when you do that, this is what it would look like. This is effectively an image that I've created as a thumbnail for a video. And then I've added some additional text that is meant to convey the message, right? And the message is clear with all of this information. It's pretty clear. This is a client testimonial, and this is what Liz said, and this is the result that she got. So it's obviously a powerful testimonial. The good thing here is that I can add a bit.ly link, and then people can just copy that easily and put it into their browser, and it will direct them through to YouTube where they can watch that video. Okay, now that is a possibility. These are also images that I've simply uploaded, and I'm showcasing how people were happy with my service. And here I'm using a couple of quotes from them just to showcase the details. This is what it looks like if you just upload an image, and then it will give you the title, which is then this bold piece of text, and then the description. You can have more text that you can add here. For example, this watch piece is then part of the description. And that's it, right? People then, when click on it, they can read more about it, and they can then, if you add a link, they can just copy that link and click through.
So that is an option. You can absolutely use these types of client testimonials. I still believe that this is more powerful because it's like a singular, unique thing that you want people to take, and you can put client testimonials elsewhere. For example, you can also signal, like I'm doing here, join 100 plus consultants, that I've had so many clients. So that means probably I am successful at what I do, which means I know how to give my clients results, which will encourage people to click on the link. So generally, I prefer this, but if you strongly prefer your client testimonials, that is fine as well. So I recommend the following hierarchy in the featured section. By default, add a link to your landing page with video, calendar link, and client testimonials. If you have a lead magnet and are certain it's necessary, feature that. Also, this is also applicable for low ticket products, right? So this is, for example, Justin Welch's featured section, and for him it's all about selling that $150 product that he has. So this is his featured section. He has nothing else, no other client testimonials. That's all he does. I mean, he's showcasing client testimonials through the 5-star reviews. That is great. This is how he showcases social proof, but other than that, it's just a link that links to his landing page of his course. Third priority, showcase client testimonials. Important, make them skimmable so that people can just glance at them and don't have to really look for the content. I think I did not do a good job with this here. I think I should have at least highlighted some of the parts that are the most relevant. But that is in the past anyway, so I don't use it anymore. Offer links to videos, of course, if you have them. If you have a video testimonial, then definitely add the link to it and also mention it that people can watch. So if you use a bit.ly link, then people can use that, or just directly put a YouTube link into it so that people have the confidence of clicking on it. Okay, then last one is showcase status. That is something that I'm not a big fan of because, status, it's not that powerful to convert people. It's really all about like, this is what we can do for you. Click on this link and let's book a call. But this is one of my favorite people on LinkedIn, Alex Smith. He is really, really good in getting his message across, and he simply wants to feature his status. He's written a book, there's a lead magnet that he has built, and he wants to showcase that he did a TEDx talk and with a counterintuitive message, love your competitors. That's fine. This is okay to showcase status. I still believe it would be better for him to simply link people to his landing page where he has a Calendly booking link, but each to their own. And that's it as far as the feature section.
Now, let's quickly look at the company description. This is more towards the bottom of your profile where your experience starts. And so your current business needs to be, of course, prominently featured. And we should just simply take advantage of the fact that we have another chance of impressing upon our market what we do. Okay, so it's very similar to the about section, but I would recommend that you focus it a little bit more on the company. So I would, for example, even recommend that you use we rather than I. In the about section, I would use I. In the company section, I would use we. And it's essentially just riffs on the same themes that you had in the about section. So I say what we do, how we do it, what's our special sauce. And I actually provide also a call to action. If you want to know more, book a discovery call here. So as I said, short and condensed version of your about section, include a CTA at the end, and then link the experience to a company page, meaning you can see the MB in this pink circle there. This shows that it is linked to a company page, okay? You need to create a LinkedIn company page for your business. It looks way more professional because otherwise there's this gray nondescript icon if you just name this one, right? This one at the bottom here at the bottom, it just shows if I were to just simply type Content 360 as a company and there would not be a company page of this name, then this is what would show up. And that's doesn't look very good, looks rather unprofessional. And therefore we first create a company page by clicking on this icon at the top right. And then at the bottom of the dropdown, you see create a company page. You just create it, add a logo, and then you link your experience to that company page. Now, let's look at your work history, anything that you have done before, what you currently do. Say something about your past roles. It adds to your credibility when people see that you've had several roles, let's say even senior roles in good companies. It can only help you. Phrase your time there in the format of responsibilities and accomplishments. For example, sales manager in charge of team of 10, achieved net revenue growth of 20% year on year, twice the company average. There you can really be like you would normally in a CV, where you just say, this is what I've been doing, and these are my biggest accomplishments. People will not care necessarily about what you did there, but it's like it all adds up. Every single thing matters on a LinkedIn profile. And if people see that you have been a professional in other circumstances and so on, they will see that you just didn't, come in from some outer space and started to do your business and there's no other references on you. That, of course, is not terribly helpful. So if you have a credible work history, just use that and tell people what you did there.
Number 9, recommendations. So there's a certain hierarchy of recommendations. Some are better than others. And I found that the one thing that impresses people the most tends to be a video interview. So whenever you can, I would strongly recommend that you ask your past clients, if especially just after they've had a success, you ask them for a video interview. And the video interview, the structure of it is where you effectively just talk about how was it before working with you? What was the pain? What was the problem situation? Then signing up with you, what made them invest into your services, your product or services, and then what were the results? And there you want to be as specific as possible. That can take anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. I've even seen video interviews that took 40 minutes, but at some point people will start fading off. Only if it's a really interesting conversation, keep it that long. But 15 to 20 minutes is usually a very good time. And so during that video interview, you will then also get a lot of quotes from the person, and you'll be able to then use those quotes for written testimonials. Okay, but let's start with that. That will be the video interview is number 1. Then there's a short video testimonial. If people don't want to take the time to do that, kind of long form video interview, you can ask them, hey, just send me a quick video of yourself, especially if they already do videos. If they're used to doing this, then it shouldn't be a problem, where you just talk 2 to 3 minutes of how it was working with me and what kind of results did you get, right? That's kind of like the second best. The third best is a LinkedIn recommendation. The reason why this is better than just text only that you can put on your website is that it is more difficult to fake. Okay, and so because text only, if you were brazen enough and you just put name and company to it, if you were brazen enough, you would just do it, right? You would just take somebody's name, fake someone or just use someone who has not given you authorization and put that on your website. Of course, it would be terrible for your reputation, but some people might do it. LinkedIn recommendation is much more difficult to fake. You would have to create a whole new profile for this. So that's why people trust it a lot. Plus, it's very practical because people can just click on the name of the recommender and can look at them and see to what degree they're legit and see, oh, is this person like me? And so on, right? So that is a very good type of recommendation. And then, of course, in the hierarchy on the penultimate level is text only with name and company. It's not bad. You can put it on your website. That's fine. And you can also use it as an image that you then put in your featured section, as discussed. But the worst one is text only and without any name and company details. Some people, especially in some sensitive industries like cybersecurity, they will not get any testimonials unless they are pure text only without any name or company. They can maybe indicate of what type of industry they were in and what kind of problems they faced, but nobody wants to go on the record. That's in some industries, it is like that. But if your industry is not like that, I would strongly challenge you to always go for the video interview. And the great thing is you can then use that video interview for many other things. And here's what I recommend that you do. In step 1, just get a client on a testimonial interview call. And then step 2, after the call, ask them for a quick LinkedIn recommendation and make it easy for them, right? Because you've already asked for the big one. Then just asking for another small favor is not a big deal if they've given you a video interview. There, I would just say prepare 2 to 3 variations of a text that they would put on LinkedIn for you based on the things they said on the call. So if on the call they said, Michael, it was such a revelation working with you and I made $30,000 with you within 11 days of doing that, then create that text, put that into writing and say, hey, if this sounds like this is something that you said and if you would be comfortable putting that on there, please do. All right. By the way, initially, interestingly, Matt, that last testimonial that you see up there, he gave me an interview, but also he very proactively sent me that LinkedIn recommendation. So he was very kind and I didn't have to pre-word that for him, as did Dan. So normally this is not a problem for me, at least whenever I ask people for recommendations, they're giving me. But if you have somebody who's a bit more reluctant, then you can always use the video call as the jump off point for the LinkedIn recommendation.
And then finally, this is not a one and done type of project. I already mentioned that. The proof will be in the pudding. While you're adding people, think about if they would resonate to your profile. Be ready to optimize and test, and then ideally only test one variable at a time. The best proof here will be your invite accept rate. If people start accepting your invitations at a better rate, and especially if it's relevant people, then you have landed on a good variable. So do make sure that you make these kinds of tests. The most important factor here will be your headline. So do tweak your headline like I showed you in one of the previous slides. This kind of testing over time, you will get yourself to this 40-50% invite accept rate. And that's it. Thank you very much.